Thank you, Kashida. Just one clarification. Sandeep could not come today, so Sean is joined in place of Sandeep here. He's Senior Vice President with CI Technologies. Having said that, the discussion remains the same, and which is, tech-driven transformation with purpose. Now, the intent of the session is that while we all talk about digital transformation, it has become a buzzword. Obviously, everyone wants to be on that train, but where is it taking you? Is it is it the destination you really wanted to go? And that's what we are going to talk about. Uh, and because the point is that if that transformation is not aligned to the business strategy, then probably it doesn't make sense, and that's what we'll try to understand. So, Sean, I'll start with you maybe. So in today's context, how is a purpose-driven transformation defined, and how does it influence the core business strategy that one has?
Very interesting question. Thank you for this, Saurabh, and nice to meet you all. Good afternoon. I'm Sean Mendonca from CA Head. So let me start by saying purpose is a compass, right? So at CA Head, we look at technology with a purpose. That purpose has to align with technical and technology objectives. What are those objectives? Let's look at number one. In the payments modernization space that we work in, human impact. Human impact becomes key. The second critical aspect is creation of a long-term value. The third important aspect is how do you benefit society as a whole? Take a simple example of payments in India today that CA has been involved with. It's touching all these aspects. Now, while we are doing legacy modernization for large multinational banks in Africa, or even if we are setting up GCCs based on tech and technical testing COEs, which are AI driven in Asia, we ask a very important question. And that question is very simple. How does this transformation, one, help you with improved decision making? Two, how does it actually create that long-term value and enhance that customer trust? So this brings me to a very important point actually from Satya Nadella. He mentions that, tech intensity is key, but tech empathy is critical. So my point is, let's build both.
Thank you, Sean. Manish, would you want to add to this?
Yeah, definitely. I think, in my opinion,
and before you start,
sure.
While I'll be directing a question to someone, please feel free to jump in wherever you want, everyone. So let's keep it very free flowing, another 36 minutes or so. Yeah, go ahead, Manish, please.
Sure. So what I was saying, I think purpose is why, right? And there's a very famous book by an author called Simon Sinek. I'm sure many people in the audience also have read it. It says that people don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it, right? So this why becomes very important for any organization. And unless and until this purpose is somewhere connected to the needs of your customer, that purpose is going to become worthless. Because at the end of the day, the purpose of any organization somewhere is connected to the purpose of the customer, right? So it starts with the purpose, why, and because that is the compelling reason which will motivate everybody to follow a particular vision or particular purpose. After the why comes the what. So that's where the strategy comes in. And strategy is much more about your choices, what to do, but more importantly, what not to do. And after this why and what comes the how, and that's where I look at transformation. So you define the why, then you define what are the strategies required to achieve that why. And then how you will get there is where the transformation comes. So I know our panel discussion is talking about transformation-driven or technology-driven purpose. I would say it is purpose-driven transformation. That's the way I would put it.
Yeah, that's very well put, that it should be the other way around actually. Anyone wants to add to that? Ajinkya maybe? Yeah, Pallav.
So I'll just pick up from what Sean said. His first point was human impact. So uh, to me, you see, the purpose of any transformation is, end of the day, crux is to make a change and make a shift in how people work. What is the human impact? And that also is measurable. That also should be measurable. So can we measure that human impact? Can we measure that? What is the impact in terms of how people work? Have I been able to bring into? If yes, then my transformation is successful. And for me, I lead a product business unit at HCL Tech, which is called Nippon, which is all about measuring the how people work part of it. So how productive they are, what are their work patterns, and what behaviors, etc. So if I'm able to measure that aspect and see all the transformation initiatives in conjunction to that, and if I'm able to really quantifiably establish that there is a definite positive change to me, then transformation, the purpose of the transformation is successful.
I'll just sort of add to what was discussed. So I think I agree with your point. It's a nice way of putting it. I think also sometimes the organization changes based on what it perceives the customer's needs to be. So, for example, at Siemens, we are pursuing this whole idea of a one tech company, which means we holistically synergize multiple domains, align our portfolio investments and organization to form this big, large Siemens across all domains. And the reason is not because we want to be, a big company. The reason is because we see that customers today, they're working in silos across many domains, multiple domains, physics, and so on. So the idea behind this initiative from Siemens is, can we combine all these together into one standard platform, one synergistic platform, so when customers come to us, we offer them a solution which is across the board. That's also reflected, for example, in our recent acquisitions, Dotmatic, a leader in life sciences, we've acquired that. Altair we've acquired because it's synergistic with our complementary simulation solution. So the idea is, if there's a customer gap that a company perceives, that's also a drive to make the company become better to address that gap. So from a reverse point of view.
Okay. All right, thanks, Makrand.
My response to this is more brutal reality, I would say.
Go ahead, we are all for it.
Yeah, and in order to do that, I would just like to set the context. I work for a company called Finastra. We develop and sell payment processing product. It's a legacy product in the market, but top 20 odd banks use our product. And why we should go for digital transformation? The brutal reality is to sustain. Not just us, but even our customers. Because banks are the slowest in the industry to adopt any new technology. Even if we want to do digital transformation of our product, not many banks would be willing to jump and say, okay, let's do it. So I think, and one of the reasons why you don't find UPI in US is because the technology is too old and the cost of replacement is too high. So when we make the choice for any technology, whether it's a full transformation or is it a complementary technology like Gen AI, our choice of technology has to be where the cost of transformation for our customer should be minimum. That becomes our topmost objective.
Okay. Well, yeah, you're brutally honest, but I have my sympathy for the BFSI guys. I started as a BFSI reporter back with NDTV Profit in those days. And the problem is the number of compliances these guys have to go through. And then the risk of third party and all this, that's what do I say? The stakes are too high. So they being cautious is not something I'm being a sympathizer for BFSI. Those guys are nice. Yes. Okay. All right. So, I'll stay with you, Makrand, and I would want to understand that when it comes to adoption, so how are you striking a balance when it comes to taking on a cutting edge, technology, while still remaining focused on the foundational strategy that you start out with? We should not forget at the first place why we start, right?
So on one side, the digital transformation from the legacy banking product is obvious to move a microservices architecture. But now what happens is the Gen AI brings a different kind of transformation, because Gen AI coexist with any system that you have. It does not necessarily needs to replace the existing system, and it can do much easier job. So the kind of innovation that we are now leading from Pune here is we are developing Gen AI product which will work on top of our existing banking product and make the banking operations much more easier. So the benefits are directly in terms of the efficiency of bank operators who are the primary users of our software. So that is how we are looking at the transformation. So on one hand, obviously there is a multi-year program about going with the microservice architecture, which is a slower progress. Even the adoption of that is going to be slow. But here in this case, the Gen AI kind of provides that one jump, quick jump, where the benefits can be delivered to us as a vendor as well as to our customers.
All right. Ajinkya, may I come to you with the same question? Is that how you, striking a balance between adoption of technology and remaining true to your foundational strategy?
Sure. So I think adoption, at least when I look at it, it's both from the internal adoption, let's say within Siemens, and the adoption of the customer. When you talk about internal adoption in the company, what we typically do and what we should follow is that any new process, any new technology, always have a change management ready so that you introduce it step by step. You don't do it at one go because you've got existing processes, you've got existing mechanisms, they're working. With new technology, there's always a danger that you've overlooked something which the legacy processes have taken care of. One example of that at Siemens is the whole, like you mentioned, Gen AI, right? So a lot of hype, a lot of promise, but also a lot of pitfalls because of hallucinations, the agents. So what we've done is taken a phased approach where in our internal processes, we've introduced Gen AI, LLM agents, assistants inside our employees, inside our groups, where they start using them more as friends rather than depending on them. And that change gradually then expands to the whole organization. So gradual incremental change with change management of the organization level will help us to sort of navigate that rather than exposing somebody to the full technology. And if it breaks, then you've got no backup.
Do you want to add something?
Yeah, I just want to add something here. Important question that we are always addressing, especially at the board level, is what is the stakeholder-centric innovation value that purpose drives when it's married with technology? Number two is how are we resilient to keeping future trends, all the trends coming in, and how do we use that, piggybacking of those future trends and building that resilience? And a critical aspect here as well is ethical decision making. So all of these aspects tie in, and so I like to focus on these 3 points, and maybe we can build on that. I just want to add to that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good food for thought. I believe you want to add something here. No, okay. So Pallav, go ahead.
See, on the adoption piece, what I would say is that there has got to be definitely a measurable for adoption. There has got to be some sort of a metric or some sort of a quantified view of how deep a particular technology or a particular tooling that an organization has invested in has seeped into the day-to-day use in the organization. Now, drivers of adoption could be many. Okay, one is definitely goal fit of whatever we are doing. So whatever technology investments that we do, whatever initiatives that we bring upon, is it marrying with the goal or the purpose? The first question that we discussed. Second is process fit. So whatever processes or whatever ways of work which is there in the organization, are those initiatives marrying with them, or is there a very large distance to traverse in terms of change management? And third is the talent fit. So even if there is a very good fitment in the other two, but there is definitely a skill gap, or there is some sort of a organization level challenge in terms of the talent that we have to really ensure adoption, then it won't happen. So all these three fits have to work together very well. Now, take an example of Gen AI. I mean, this is the hot buzzword these days.
Everybody cannot have a conversation without Gen AI nowadays.
Yeah. So now, very interesting thing. I think it's a Gartner finding. 60% of Gen AI tools, their usage after 90 days dropped down to as low as 30% in the organization. So regardless of whatever all good things that we have conceived and conjured up in our head in terms of the benefits of Gen AI and productivity gains and stuff like that, but eventually what is happening in the ground, adoption levels are poor. But then there is a good news as well. If I just do right now an audience poll here and ask each individual and take a count on the question that how many of you have a Gen AI app installed on your mobile phone, I can safely guess that it will be almost like 95 to 100%. There could be possibly more than one Gen AI apps, ChatGPT, Grok, what have you. But when you look at the organization level adoption, it is not as good as what we see in the poll at an individual level. So to a great extent, at a consumer level, prosumer level, we see a great degree of adoption, but the complexity arises in the organization because the nuances of the business of the organization. What are those nuances? Data security, privacy, then of course, all the nuances of the ROI and the functional benefit of making that investment and so on and so forth. And that's where the complexity arises, and that's where this fit question is very much important.
Right. I'll just add one small point. See, when we think about transformation, transformation is not an event, it's a process, right? It's an ongoing thing. So adoption is one phase or part of that whole transformation process. So very similar to how we go and approach any product design, where you start to think about the end usage upfront. If that is not thought through in the beginning, of course, adoption is going to take that much longer time. And many times what is happening, companies are assuming just because it is the buzzing technology or it's most in demand kind of a thing, unless until I adopt it, I will be looking like a fool, I'll be looking like somebody who is not adopting it. They rush into it without understanding that the people may or may not be ready for it. So it ties back to the purpose then, because why are we asking people to adopt it? If that is not clear, very similar to any organization change management process, it's not going to happen. So I would say thinking about adoption upfront is as important as thinking about technology.
I'll stay with you, Manish, but before that, I will just, from what Pallav said, two things. It's just my observation. I don't know whether Gartner report said that or not, that if that percentage has come down to 30, has the adoption of any other Gen AI has gone up in the meantime? Because there is always newer things which are coming up. This is just a thought. I don't know whether that mentioned or not. So it could be one of the reasons. And to the other part, at the enterprise level, see, at individual levels, as you said, for people, the stakes are not that high. So for enterprises, the stakes are much higher. So the process, I mean, think of it logically is to be slow. I think that's my just observation. Manish, I'll come to you. You are deeply involved in virtual twin experience is what we call, and how do such technologies enable purpose-driven innovation at scale? And what industries do you see leading this transformation?
Definitely. First of all, I agree with what you said. If one thing is not getting adopted, something else is coming up. That's
Correct,
true.
yeah.
And probably the answer there is more the AI agents rather than the generative AI apps, where
Correct,
quickly consumers and companies are shifting. Coming to the question that you asked me, I think for the sake of the audience, I would like to first clarify what is virtual twin experience, because it's a very specific term invented or propagated by Dassault System, my organization. So there are two parts to it. One is virtual twin and the other part is experiences. So when we think about virtual twin, I want to first and foremost clarify it's different from a digital twin. Digital twin as a terminology is widely used in the industry. Why we at Dassault Systems specifically chose virtual twin as a term is because we believe virtualization or digitalization is just not about making things digital. It's something which carries with itself the knowledge, the know-how, the design, as well as somewhere the entire value of the thing. So when you make a virtual twin of a car, it's not just a 3D model. It has knowledge, know-how, as well as the entire value proposition within it. And that's why, And that to be seen in the context of virtual worlds, as we call it, we make virtual worlds for the real life. This is where the virtual twin comes up. When we talk about experiences, at the end of the day, look at how we behave as consumers. We go to a Starbucks rather than a normal coffee shop, not because the coffee is better, but because the experience is better. And this is what the companies have realized increasingly across the globe, that how do they bring better experiences to their own customers. And to get those experiences, the virtual twins are the way to get there. Now, when you look at how these virtual twin experiences are helping companies to transform and accelerate their own businesses, at the end of the day, we all know doing anything physical, it's going to take much longer time and it's going to cost a lot. Whereas doing that same thing virtually, it's going to be much more faster and efficient. And with the adoption of Gen AI technologies within the virtual worlds and augmenting it with AR and VR technologies, today, number of companies are benefiting from these virtual twin experiences really to accelerate and finally make their things faster, better, cheaper, or nicer. At the end of the day, that's the thing everybody's looking at. Make things faster, better, cheaper, or nicer. And you will see products around you which are really benefiting from that. Now, which industries, you asked me, are really adopting? Obviously, the mass scale manufacturing industries are adopting it the first because they need to really work at much accelerated timelines now. Look at automotive industry, the number of weeks or months in which new variants are coming out these days, it's much more than the past. And that's the need of the hour. So these manufacturing industries, automotive, aerospace, industrial equipment, the supplier industries, they are the ones which are adopting it first. But very interestingly, what we are observing from Dassault System point of view, even new industries like life sciences and healthcare have also started to get into this space. So at Dassault System, for example, we have something called as virtual heart. So we can have surgeons use the virtual heart to practice the surgery before they actually get into the surgery. So these are the kind of new usages we are finding in new industries. And last but not the least, all of us want smart cities. All of us want less traffic. Definitely those like me who are going to Hinjewadi every day, and I'm sure many people in other parts of the country want those times to shorten. Infrastructure, cities, many new usages are coming up for this virtual twin experiences.
You know, traffic is a common pain point across India for everyone. Wherever I'm from Delhi, we boast of wider road, but that's not true, trust me. But what I like is that, you know, that example that you gave about virtual heart, that's a real, what do I say, leapfrog, I may say, and which is very beneficial. But the other one actually leaves me a little heavy because, you know, automotive industry coming up with new designs, new technology every 3 months, you feel very shortchanged while buying. You know, every 3 months things are changing. So probably, I don't know, good for the industry, probably not for the consumers maybe. I don't know. As a buyer, Ajinkya, I'll come to you. You know, in engineering service, digital simulation and performance prediction are key. So how are you using simulation technologies, you know, to not just drive efficiency, but to, you know, achieve long-term sustainable outcomes, especially for your clients?
So at Siemens, we have this suite of simulation tools called Simcenter tools. They encompass everything from what they call 1D simulation to computational fluid dynamics to 3D structures to everything in between. And now with the acquisition of Altair, that explodes with, you know, AI, data, and all of that. So we've got a huge range of tools that we can give to our customers. But the issue, of course, is, you know, the customer doesn't want or need all of them. There's a specific need for each customer. And we don't want to give everything because it doesn't make sense for the customer. So typically in simulation, what we see is most of our customers use simulation to sort of left shift the design cycle, which means they try to do things earlier in the design cycle using simulation rather than going to prototypes or going to physical things, as you also mentioned. So that trend we see. Now, depending on which customer, they can do more or less of that based on the maturity levels and the processes they have, right? So efficiency comes, but your question more was on the sustainability long term. How does that help to, you know, keep their business goals alive with their product. So an example of that would be, I'll give you a recent example. So Ether Energy, which is our customer, also had an IPO very recently. So it's in the news. So Ether came to us 2018 because they had just started out as a EV startup from Bengaluru, a very promising company that time, IIT alumni. And they came to us saying, look, we've got this organization and we want to have sort of a cross-platform tool that can help us to break the silos in data and processes. So that's when we introduced to them the Teamcenter PLM platform that we have. And that went on, they incorporated it and so on. But that was the only thing we sold them. Once they had used that, then their goals shifted. So their first focus when they came to us was help us to scale up cross-organizational communication and data exchange. Then when they got that right, then the next thing they came to us was, we want to go to market faster, reduce our design cycles, and also make the product better quality and also make it more reliable. So that's when we said, okay, we'll work with you. And then they started using our Star CCM Plus CFD solutions and also our durability and NVH testing solutions. So I'm just showing you the progress from where they came from a PLM sort of base thing. As their needs developed, we helped them to grow their complete platform from PLM to simulation to durability to NVH. In fact, if you go to their website and see, there's a nice video of them literally abusing their scooter. It's painful to watch, but that shows the kind of level of reliability they build into their things using these kind of tools, right? And then after that was done, then they came to us with NX and so on. So the idea was, as the customer scales up their objectives, we help them based on their sort of goals to market, what simulation techniques are useful for them. It's not a one-size-fits-all. It's not that at the starting of their journey, they'll need everything. But what we've seen is as customers evolve in their processes, in their maturity, in their expertise, they start using more and more of a portfolio or a domain because they see the need of scaling that up. So that's one example where a customer has taken our life cycle to simulation, to CAD, to NVH, through and through, as the customer matured and the needs evolved throughout. So that's where the sustainability part comes from. Their products now have reliability as the main goal, along with quality. So that's one thing. And also to add, just since you asked simulation, people think of simulation at the design level, where you're doing computer-based simulation and so on. But increasingly, people use simulation also at the production level and the post-production operation level, where you have digital twins, like you said, virtual twins, digital twins, to monitor your fleets, monitor on-field or on-premise machinery, to then get value from there. That's the other part of sustainability, long-term goals and predictive maintenance to help you achieve that.
That's very normal, that's logical, right? So the proof of the pudding is in eating it. So the more you experience it, probably you're more comfortable with the system and you adopt it more. And then, probably the rate also increases probably later on. Pallav, I'll come to you. You're part of a global business unit, and one size fits all is not something that happens, right? So how do you ensure how do you align region specific needs and a broader technology technology driven transformation strategy?
When it comes to a regional view, I would say for a technology transformation strategy, cookie cutter approach will not work. There are the way I see is that there are two axes to it. One is the contextualization axis, and the other one is the commonality comparability axis. So when we go across regions, context of business changes, operating model changes, stakeholders, if the operating model changes from a stakeholder perspective, different stakeholders change. Who is getting impacted by the change? What is the extent of impact? What it needs to be done to ensure that the changes stick? So all those things immediately change with the business context. But then, regardless of all the changes that exist across different regions and geographies, what remains a common theme is certain, business values or certain goals and metrics which are common and which the organization, regardless of the region, wants to drive and wants to excel at. So that is the commonality side of it. Now, let me give you an example. Okay, so like all of us, we understand R&D, right? So there are two treatments to R&D. One treatment to R&D is that whatever expenses that you incur in your research and development efforts, be it whatever tools that you consume, whatever manpower effort that is going into developing things, they can be either expensed out and moved out in your P&L as an expense, and you just immediately kind of address that into your that year's P&L. The other treatment of R&D expenses is you capitalize it. You put it in your balance sheet as an asset. But then there are controls. You cannot just put in every expense in your balance sheet, right? So there are certain accounting principles. Now, very interestingly, you see how the context differs between regions. Now, in United States, IRS, the tax authority over there, they have certain rules and certain incentives for R&D. Now, what they mandate is that there are certain qualified expenses which are eligible for incentives, tax breaks. And to enjoy those incentives, you need to really provide that documentary evidence for having actually fulfilled those criteria for those expenses. So you need to have a good accounting of all those expenses. Now, what the mandate is that all of that R&D should be really capitalized. It cannot be treated as an expense in your balance sheet. Similarly, in UK, there are tax breaks and incentives, but it is driven by patents. So what they call is a patent in a box regime, right? So if you have some demonstrable patents and whatever R&D that you have done, it is linking back to the patent and there are documentary evidence of doing all of that, you have a certain lower rate of income tax, corporate tax for your organization. In India, there are no tax breaks. I mean, to a large extent, there are not. But in India, of course, the accounting standards still reign there. Accounting standards are there. Basis those accounting standards, it's your choice whether you would like to capitalize or whether you would like to put it in your profit and loss statement. Now, what I have just laid out in front of you is different ways of operation because there are certain business benefits of doing whatever you do in terms of how you treat your R&D expenses. But you see, what is common across all of these geographies is workforce efficiency in R&D. You need to have, one way or the other, you need to have a very uniform method of capturing the expenses and accounting for those expenses that you incur in your R&D expenses. You need to have some governing frameworks and tools and methods to really capture and account all those expenses in a standardized, uniform fashion. So here what you see is that within a function like R&D, you have different geographic, regional nuances of how you treat that, how you really kind of eventually package that in your balance sheet or profit and loss for taxation purposes. But then from an efficiency of R&D operations perspective, the principles are more or less same. So to cut the long story short, what I mean is that while business nuances, cultures and other things may vary, what is the balancing factor is how you measure and what goals and what operational efficiency elements that you really keep, which runs across the geography for a global organization. And they are like common theme tying back everything together in one place. For me, say for example, Nippon, the product that I lead, it helps you to document that manpower effort, and it helps you to really kind of look at the technology consumption, the utilization of whatever technology and tools that is used in the team.
Right.
It can provide that documentary evidence
Right.
to all of that. Now, that tool, let's say if you choose across your organization and put it in practice across the organization throughout the R&D function, be it Costa Rica or be it, let's say, Bangalore or be it in UK, London, that tool is the common theme, whereas the business nuances are very different. So this is how you really
Right.
balance the
It's
regional
like the
nuances.
traffic problem, which is common. We talked about that across. So that's there, and then we build upon probably there. So the base remains the same baseline remains the same. Makrand, I'll come to you before we have another 4-5 minutes we'll try to see if we can take some questions. But before that, and since we talked about it, that finance being one of the very sensitive regulated sector, how do you prioritize innovation while ensuring compliance and security? Because that's, to my mind, is the biggest challenge for the fintech industry. And the second part is that if you can share a case where a technology was adopted, which probably people were hesitant about, but then was adopted without compromising the core business, integrity.
So sure, no matter whichever country you go, no bank would like to play with the money of their citizens. So there are three aspects actually. Even though you mentioned security and compliance,
Correct.
there is a third aspect, which is the legal framework of the country.
Right, correct. Yeah.
And all three, no matter what sort of technology solution you are providing, you need to consider all three aspects. So I would like to share one use case that we are developing. It's a Gen AI use case. And we are building on top of the existing product that we have. So it will be easy for bank operators to do certain transactions. So just quick note about even though it looks very simple that on the GPay or PhonePe, I pay money to you, let's say, and it goes in 2 seconds. There are lots of checks and balances and a very lengthy process that goes through in those 2 seconds. Now, and in those 2 seconds, there is a possibility where your payment could be stuck. Now, in such cases, the bank operator needs to assess why the payment is stuck, take the necessary action, and release the payment so that you still receive, maybe not after 2 seconds, but probably 10, 15, half a minute. But in this case, the old systems or legacy systems that we have, it's a very cumbersome process to load different screens, look at different kinds of information, look at where the payment is stuck, why it is stuck, etc. Now this use case that we are developing, it can do a very, very clever job, and that particular amount of time that is required by bank operator, it can be straight away reduced by almost 80-85%. Now, the next stage to that is obvious that once the bank operator finds what the root cause is, he needs to fix it. But now with Gen AI, even the fixing can be automated. Now that's where the legal framework and the compliance comes into the picture. Because bank operator doing it, and if he makes the mistake, the bank is liable. There is a clear audit mention who has done certain operations. If it is executed by AI, the audit log will show it is executed by AI. If it goes in the court of law, something happens, and in the court of law, whether the AI committed transaction is accepted or not. Unfortunately, in any of the countries, there is no legal framework at the moment. So honestly, what we have done is the first 60% part is only we are implementing, and our legal team said the remaining 30-40% please don't implement till the time we have a legal framework. So that's one. The second aspect is about the security. Now, so far, we are aware for last 2 decades, the security of hardware, we build data centers, security of softwares, we build firewalls, we have a data security as well. With the LLM or the AI models, the security is kind of different. In traditional measures, the security is always, the threat is from outside in. So we create the barriers. In case of AI, the threat is both ways. The AI, the LLM model itself can be a security threat. Because the security threat could come in the form of sexist response, wrong data displayed, abusive language, the response is given in abusive language, the user is tricking AI and then the transaction information is revealed or the sensitive data is revealed. Now, as of now, even though there are few players who are building the security systems, one of the top ones is NVIDIA, where they're building something like guardrail, it is still, they themselves are claiming it can only secure 80%, not 100%. So the adoption that you mentioned, right, it's not just the internal adoption of the Gen AI use cases, but even from the bank's point of view, it becomes tricky. So what bank may say, so we cannot decide that, okay, this is the software security or this is the AI security that we are offering and take it. We need to work very closely with the banks. We need to adopt probably the tools that they are using. we probably even need to adopt the LLM that they are deciding. So the system that we are building, what changes is we need to build the system which is the security software agnostic, and it is LLM agnostic as well. Because many of the top banks that we have, they are not on cloud, they are on-prem. And they will never use something like OpenAI service from Azure. So ultimately, we end up deciding some kind of on-prem LLM which can be deployed and then it can be used. The only good thing is that it is not like a deep research. So you don't really need to start scouting different LLMs. As long as the LLM knows English and can write basic SQL statements, etc., or knows Java, which almost every LLM knows, the job is generally taken care.
And then you accuse of banks of not adopting. You're saying there's no law to catch hold of AI. Tomorrow, AI makes a payment. Who you're going to put in jail? So I think that's a very interesting area of discussion, which often comes out, that how much liberty do we give to AI in all the systems? As you said, there could be sexist remarks, there could be unauthorized, payments, and lot more. So obviously, we can go on and on, but in the interest of time, and I see Kashata is standing here, so sorry we will not be able to take questions. But thank you, everyone. I understand that yes, transformation is important, but staying true, and it won't be same for everyone. Like Pallav was saying, there's a baseline, and then there is improvisation on top of that. So I think that's what my key takeaway from here is. Thank you everyone for joining.